Hello, my name is Frank Drouillard, and I'm running for Marin County Board of Supervisors, District 4. And I recognize a lot of people that were here last time I spoke, and I talked about housing, homelessness, and public safety. And I'm going to touch on those briefly today. I want to spend a little bit more time on public finances, the county finances. So for housing, we have a housing problem here. We can't, we're being forced to build big box housing by Sacramento that doesn't match our needs. And we need to have low-income housing. We need to have housing that young people can afford and that our retirees can afford to stay here in Marin County. I've got some ideas on how to do that. It's basically allow more building permits. We've got to build more homes, but not the big box stuff that they want to build here in Novaro that's going to ruin the downtown and ruin our neighborhoods because it has inadequate parking, it has inadequate setbacks and green space. So I'm going to make it easier to get building permits. And also we're going to prepare, this is rather consistent with a Supreme Court decision that I think is going to come pretty soon. They're going to eliminate these county, what they call nexus fees or impact fees. So if you want to build a house, they'll say, hey, you are going to add demands to the county and you are impacting us $30,000, $50,000. They add that to the cost of your permit or to the developer. That gets passed on to the home buyer. So those are huge upfront costs that are probably going to be eliminated, and our county's not prepared to do that. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The next thing is homelessness. I'm an advocate of taking county property and building a transitional campus, one that's very similar to what they've done to great success in San Antonio, Texas. It's, if you want to be homeless, or if you are homeless in Novaro, you can't. Some people do. Yes. But you can't just camp anytime, anywhere that you want. You have to go where we will put you. It's a transitional campus. You are required to get services to treat your mental health or your drug addiction, which are some of the main drivers of homelessness in this county. If you're just a grifter and don't want to live, you want to live on the street, you're not going to be allowed to do that. And this is consistent with Martin v. Boise. We will give people a place to stay and treat the root causes of homelessness. And I'm proposing San Geronimo Old Golf Course looks like a good site. The roads may need to be improved. There's also the old Honor Farm is probably big enough. And then possibly at the Civic Center. But we have space in Marin County where we can create a campus like that. Now, public safety, I don't want to steal Aaron's thunder, but that's becoming an issue here in Marin County. We've got to protect our retail space. We can't allow what's happening in San Francisco, but I see they've come to their senses now. They are now on board with that proposition that's going to repeal Prop 47 that basically makes theft illegal. Up to $950, but even that limit doesn't apply anymore. You can steal $1,200 and you still won't get arrested. Okay. So now, as far as spending goes, this county gets millions of dollars every year, maybe more, from the state of California. They are going to be faced with some budget cuts. They have to. We are at least $68 billion in the hole. You can argue if that's over 1 year or over 18 months. It's still a lot of money. They're going to have to make cuts. And we're going to see cuts here. This county has to prepare for it. We don't have sufficient reserves. Normally they suggest between 17 and 25% reserves in your budget. We don't have that. It's much, much lower than that. I don't have the exact figures, but I've heard 5%. That means we can't go too long without getting money from the state. And we have to build up these reserves. We have to cut our spending so we can protect essential workers. Those include emergency services, fire, police, sheriff. It also includes things like child protective services. We've got to protect kids that are taken away from their homes because of abusive parents or parents that neglect them. We've got to keep services like that. We've got to keep our courts running. We've got to keep our planning commission going. So we've got to keep our roads and drainage facilities. We've got to keep those working smoothly. So there are a bunch of essential services that we have to protect. That means, on my view, we have to start cutting administrative levels. Administrative staff has to go. That's where all the costs are. We have to protect the workers, the people that are actually doing the work. Now there are some technical staff that we have to keep, but you take Matt Willis's department. We don't need all of that staff that he's got there. One doctor at the top and then a bunch of people under him that actually do the work administering health in this county, and that includes monitoring on-site septic systems in unincorporated areas, wells. There are a lot of things that we have to do. We've got to protect those staff. And so that's one of the main things that I would do. My opponent's not even talking about that. Another thing that I'm adamantly opposed, and where I differ with him, he wants to have rent control. I oppose that in just about every form. We've already got enough rent control opposed by the state. Adding more at the county level is not going to increase housing. It's actually going to end up resulting in a shortage of housing, or a greater shortage of housing, and it's going to lower the quality of housing that's available. This has been seen over and over again in cities that have adopted rent control. And there's other ways to take care of renters. One is to build more places for them to live and increase the supply of places for people to live. But that's a double-edged sword, because again, I don't want the big box housing solutions that are imposed by Sacramento. They're incompatible with this county. So anyway, that's where I stand on housing. The public safety, I think we need to protect our retail centers. I'm also concerned with the gangs that are coming from the East Bay of San Francisco, sophisticated gangs with alarm jammers. They're seeing this in the East and in the Midwest, and this county is ripe for that type of crime. They hide in wooded areas by wealthy homes, wait for the people to leave, show up with their alarm jammers, just break through a door or window, drag the whole safe out, drag it somewhere else, and pop it open. And that's becoming, this county is ripe for that, because we have a lot of wealthy homes against open space.
Frank, do you think that problem's being driven by the illegals that are coming here? The invasion?
They're more sophisticated. I mean, they don't come with radar jamming equipment.
Well, they're all related to the cartel, right? I mean, a lot of this is organized.
Well, that could be, yes. So, anyway, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more about crime. She's much more in tune with crime statistics than I am. Here, when I've talked to police and sheriffs here, it's mostly crime related to homelessness, drug use, drug selling. And that's another difference that I have with the incumbent is I want the county to start making a lot of noise to the state and to the federal government about our porous southern border. That's where these drugs are coming through. Right. And yes, we don't control the border, right, but we sure pay for the people that represent us that do support the border. But we've got to stop pretending that that's not a problem, that all these millions of illegal aliens coming into the country aren't going to be a problem for our cities. They are. Yeah. We can't absorb that many people that fast, and we've got to close the border, secure the border. That's absolutely essential. If not only for the masses of people coming who we don't know anything about them, but it's that we know that there's drug dealers bringing drugs, mules coming across the border. We know that the child sex trafficking and other sex trafficking is a huge problem. We should be able to speak out against that, because it's going to start affecting our county. And but again, they pretend that it doesn't exist. They brag about having a fentanyl program where it's free Narcan for everybody.
Right.
That's great. Yeah, we can save somebody's life by giving them a jab. I'm all for that. But how about getting at the root problem?
How about stop this illegal supply from the cartels?
So, all right. I'm going to stop talking now. So if anyone has some questions, yes, John.
2 questions. One is, have you heard about anything, I'll say the BlackRock type companies buying real estate in this area that's residential? And 2, is that homeless campus idea a temporary, or is that a long-term fix?
My view is I want to solve the homeless problem, okay? And at that campus, say we do solve the homeless problem, say we miraculously do that, we've got a facility that we could turn into a community college campus. Okay, it's all the stuff that you have there to treat the homeless. You would have buildings and office space and facilities to have another campus. But my view is that's not going to be largely supported by the county. The county would pretty much just provide the land. What they did in San Antonio is they had philanthropists pay for building all the structures, volunteers to staff it, and then the NGOs who do get money from the county and the state and the federal government, they provide a lot of these specialty services that the homeless would need to transition. So, but again, I'm looking at that model that they get a lot of bang for the buck because they're treating the root causes. And it takes time with some people. You take someone that's a vet that got addicted to drugs because they gave him OxyContin like a candy from the VA, and then they cut him off and he's got to get it to heroin or fentanyl or whatever. They take time to transition. And they need a sense of purpose, they need a job. So you've got to give them some job training, you've got to give them a place to stay until they get stable and become self-reliant and then get a home. So but other people, like women with small children, they've got to take priority for housing. You've got to have a separate place for them to live. That's the other thing they do at the Haven for Hope, is they separate the sexes at the campus. Apparently it eliminates a lot of problems. So, so we want to be able to do that. Yes. So,
Groundbreaking.
okay, the BlackRock thing, it's my understanding that 80% of the mortgages for homes, they're owned by BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street. Okay, they can get money much more cheaply than we can. Their interest rate that they have to pay is far less than ours because they're big institutions. They can then afford to outbid people on homes. So you may remember 2-3 years ago, people were selling homes, they were just snapping them up, just overpaying for them. And the people would sell their home they're thinking they're moving up, wow, I'm getting 700 grand for this house. Now I can move up, but the house they wanted to get is now over $1 million because people bid it up. Well, that also caused the rent prices to go up. So I would look at a way of, I don't like using these terms, but I would try to make it so I would try to tax those banks that have those mortgages at a higher level than other banks to make it so I want to increase the supply. I want to force them to start divesting of the homes, stop overpaying for homes. I think that would decrease the pressure on home prices in this county. I think we have to do things like that. Make it easier for community banks to loan to people that at a normal rate.